What's up, everybody? This is Jesse Mullen from Mullen Woodworks. This is the Go Build Something podcast. This is our first ever episode. I am joined with Jesse P. from Penalty Box Woodshop and Brandon from Walker's Woodworks. We're going to talk about shop stuff, basically anything building-wise, whether it's your website, whether it's your business, your online presence, to actually building stuff in the shop. We're going to talk about all of it.
All right, so this is our first episode of the podcast. I figured for the very first one, we would just go around and each one of us talk about how we got started, where we got started, and where we're at now, how we built in a short form. We can go a little bit more in depth later on, but how we built to where we are now as far as builders, social media, and all that good stuff. So Brandon, why don't you kick us off and put you on the spot first?
Oh, thanks a lot. So as far as woodworking goes, I really just started because a lot of people wanted pallet stuff when I started. As you guys know, I started off as Brandon's Pallet Creations, which is kind of embarrassing. But so I built a pallet shelf, and then just kind of went from there. People wanted to buy it and me to make more, and then coffee tables and stuff like that, and just kind of progressed from there. I learned a lot off of YouTube, which also kind of inspired me to do YouTube myself. The how-to stuff really helped me out with people like Matt Cremona and the Wood Whisperer and all those people. And then I have gone back and forth on like client builds or content. But recently, obviously, I've been more doing the content side. I don't even do client builds really anymore. I'm finishing up the last one in the shop right now. But went to work for my buddy who had a Bidwell Wood Company, so I forwarded all my clients there, and I'm just focusing on content now. So,
do you like that more? Just doing content and not having to worry about clients?
Well, I haven't really dove into that much yet because I'm still finishing up these tables that are lasting forever, it seems like. I've never had such trouble building tables in my life, especially just regular 4-leg tables.
Why? Why are they giving you trouble?
Well, there's 2 of them, and then I got 2 benches to do, and I think because I'm trying to do it all at one time, trying to like batch it out, and I think it just maybe seems like it's taking longer when really it probably would have took that long if I would have did them, singly, like at one at a time, but It just seems like it's taking forever. That, and now I'm working 410s, so I don't really have time after work because I was working as a small engine repair tech, and I was working 7 to 3:30, so I had that 3:30 till dark to work in the shop after work. But now I don't get home till like 7, so I really don't have time to go out in the shop, or I'm too tired because it's 105 in the shop all day. And it's around 100, but it feels like 105. And then I just don't have time to go out, so on my days off I go out, so it just seems like it's just taking a lot longer because I'm only doing it on the weekends, and I'm doing more at once, I guess. So
transitioning from when you used to just do this as either a hobby or as a side job making money, and your day job is completely different, do you find it a little bit harder now to get back out in the shop now that your day job is kind of very much the same as what you do when you get home?
Not yet. I mean, I've only worked there about a month, so maybe after a few years that might be the case, but as of right now, no, I love it because as you know, I've been doing learning how to weld over there, so that's a whole new field, and I'm really enjoying that, especially just learning new techniques and stuff. Like the other day I started TIG welding, just fusing though with no rod or anything, but just learning new stuff, and we have a really good welder there, and so he's more than willing to teach, so it's pretty cool to learn new stuff all the time, and I'm looking forward to that. Plus we're doing more like big stuff over there. Like right now we're doing a 16 or 18 foot conference table with a metal base.
That's cool.
Yeah, and we're trying to focus more on like slab stuff, and then we'll be opening a woodworking store in the front of the shop too, and so I'm kind of in charge of getting brands on board for that. So it's kind of a mix over there of, I wouldn't say content, but kind of management and building. So it's kind of nice.
That's really cool.
Good.
So
that breaks things up nice.
You guys are just doing slabs because of margin wise? Like they're just
I think it's just
money?
more like what he wants to do, and it's just, it also is a good, it's a higher profit, really. I mean, you're not going to sell a slab table for $1,000. So
how much do you guys sell them for typically, like to your clients?
I honestly don't know. I haven't been there long enough yet.
Oh, okay.
But I'm assuming like it depends on what it is, but like the one slab table I made, I mean, it was a $10,000 table because it was out of Clara, one solid slab. I mean, the slab was $5,000 before I even touched it. So, nice. Yeah, it was nice though. Looks good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's all you're kind of integrating what you've done in the past and what you're doing now with them as far as the C channels that you've used in the past in your builds before you started working there, and now you've kind of incorporated there at that business, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so he had been using like pre-made ones just like I was, as far not pre-made but like pre-cast, so they had like the angled legs on them. And so what we're actually doing is just taking sheets and then breaking them on the big break. But before that we put the elongated holes in them so that, you know, to allow for wood movement, and then that way people don't have to drill their own holes, because that part is horrible. It's the worst part, honestly. So we use a punch press, punch it in the sheet, and then we break it, which just means bending the metal. So it's got two 90-degree legs on it, and you can do different sizes, different finishes. We either sell them raw, or we have a powder coating shop as well, so we can just send it over there, get it powder coated, and send it out. And they're pretty good prices. It's usually by the inch, but there's some on there that are just pre-selected sizes and finishes and stuff. So we're definitely offering that because we see a good value, you know, a good demand for it, and it's kind of cool to be giving back to the community as far as builders and stuff, and offering things that we can actually ship out without costing an arm and a leg, like bases and stuff, although we are going to offer that as well, so that'll be cool.
I feel like C channels I feel like C channels like didn't come out of nowhere, but like I feel like lately, like within the last like 6 months, like now if you do a slab, almost everybody does the C channel. Yeah. And like before that, nobody did. So there's some like it just like now it's super popular, and it makes sense. Like I know I've talked to you about it. It's like a insurance policy just to make sure like nothing's gonna twist on you or whatever. Because I have seen pictures of like big old slabs that like after a couple of years it's just like it's like ooh. So
yeah, I mean it probably, I wouldn't say that it's going to prevent twists, especially if you use a slab that's not dry, obviously.
Yeah.
But I put it in regular tables too, because you know sometimes it's more for like cupping and stuff. It makes sense. So or like if it's trying to split or separate or anything. But I mean there's a lot of people that say you don't need it, but technically I feel like it's the same thing as using breadboard ends, because that's what breadboard ends are for, is to just try to keep the table flat, and I don't like the way they look and they're a pain in the butt to do, so I just use the C channel. It's way better. I like the look of it without that. And on slabs, obviously you're not going to put a breadboard end on a slab, that's really pretty stupid. But that's basically what they do, and I have a video on that if you guys want to check it out. Shameless plug.
If somebody does do breadboard ends on a slab, I'd like to see that. I think it looks horrible. I have
seen somebody that I can't remember who it was. It may have been like Charles or something. I'm pretty sure they did like a type of breadboard end, but it was actually live edge as well. So it looked actually pretty
just
cool.
Put it on. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was just, I mean, it wasn't like continuous live edge around the whole table, but it was like on the ends and on the sides. So it wasn't too bad. It was pretty cool, actually. Something different.
That's sweet. Well, JP, you should kind of dive into your story. Tell us how you started and where you are now.
I was trying to think. Sometimes it's hard to think about when you got started, but I guess about 8 or 9 years ago, started woodworking in the garage, just basic stuff. Bought a contractor saw, miter saw, built a poker table, built a toy box for my kids, and excuse me, and kind of went from there. When we bought our new house, I talked my wife into not parking in the garage if I built her a dining room table, which worked out really well for me because I quickly just claimed that as my space and just brought as much stuff in there as I possibly could, as fast as I possibly could, so she couldn't have it back. But
Good call.
But since then, you know, I think I've built, I think we're on our 3rd or 4th table. We just keep rotating them in. We give family our table, and I'll build a new one for us. And somebody buys a house and they need a table, and I'll just give them that table, and I'll build another one for us. And but we've enjoyed it. You know, it was something that I did because I could do it cheaper than what you could buy it for. And at the time, we didn't really have the money and stuff to go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on tables and whatever. And I just started out with basic, you know, pine, whatever I could buy, the cheap stuff at Lowe's or Home Depot, and build stuff with it. I didn't care. I could sand it down and stain it and make it look good, and went from there. And then, as you get more experience, as you get better tools, start going to the lumber yard, start picking out some rough cut stuff and using ash instead of pine and maple and stuff. And you start really seeing how much better quality furniture you can start making. And I guess throughout that process, I started learning off of YouTube, because nobody in my family does woodworking. My dad does rough construction stuff, but that's about it. Nobody does, fine woodworking or furniture making or anything that I could learn off of. So I started watching YouTube and discovered a bunch of people on there that were really doing a good job of explaining to people like me how to do stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Then discovered people on Instagram. And after a while watching that, I was like, learning so much off of these people throughout this time, I'm going to start something up, just see what happens, put out there what I learn. And if it goes, it goes. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm going to have fun just as a side job or hobby. And man, it went out well, and I've had a ton of fun with it. So I think we're doing the social media side of it for, I want to say 3 years now, 2 or 3 years now.
Sounds right. I think we started right around the same time.
I would say so. I think we all did.
We were all like pretty small. More than 3 years for you. I was on Instagram 2015, but I was never really active until like 17 or so. I really just started it to like try to sell stuff and get more eyes on my stuff. But yeah, and something else, like I forgot to say, when you said nobody in your family does woodworking, nobody of mine did woodworking either, really, but my grandpa did when I was a kid, but he died when I was like 7. So I do remember going out in the wood shop, and like my dad actually had some of his tools. It was my mom's dad, but my dad was really good friends with him, and he ended up with a lot of his tools. So we did have some of his woodworking tools. I actually have one of his routers still in the shop that it works fine. It's a Black & Decker. It's pretty cool to have, but yeah. So nobody directly was. I did high school wood shop, but I wasn't really into it. I just did it to get a passing grade.
That makes sense. That sounds about right anyway for you. So
yeah, thanks.
I got lucky after I moved in this house. A neighbor of mine moved in across the street, and I was standing in the driveway one day, and I looked up and I saw a bandsaw going in. Then I saw a table saw going in. I was like, "Ooh, that was a nice cabinet saw."
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going over there, and his name's James. He's a retired pharmacist and just one of the best woodworkers that I know. I mean, the guy is just amazing. Can make anything. Has made everything. Very experienced and has everything to make it with. And man, over the last 2 years, the amount of knowledge and stuff that I've gained from him is astronomical. Like he is just, he started woodworking back in the days where it was just out of magazines, the old woodworking magazines and stuff that, or you just looked at something and made it, or you needed something, you just made it and figured it out. And he does a lot of old school stuff, no screws, all old school joinery. And man, it's been a lot of fun learning that.
That's awesome.
There's this guy. So I walk my kids to school every day, and there's this guy that has his garage open, and he has this shop. He's got to be like late 80s. He's an older dude, but he has his shop open, and he has all like vintage Delta and Jet tools. That's all he has. And he has this big old lathe, and he's always out there doing stuff. And I always like creepily like stare at him every time I talk by, because I'm like, God, dude, I bet you he knows so much. Like, and that's like, it's like, I kind of want to talk to him, but I want to like be weird about it. So it's always, but I always want to like, I want to find somebody like that has a ton of knowledge that's like with you. I know, but it's.
I used to be like that.
You might be like, oh, you're the son I never had. I'm going to teach you everything.
I mean, he's only a few years out too. You know what I mean? So it's like I could inherit some tools.
The knowledge, not the tools. Don't be rude.
I meant the tools.
I used to be like that, but now if I'm walking down the neighborhood and I see somebody with a 2x4 in the driveway messing with them, I'm like, hey, what are you doing over there?
Yeah.
Is that a Ryobi? Never mind.
Hey, we all started. Hey, I started with Ryobi. That's all I had, man, for like the longest time.
I just started with Black & Decker.
Yeah, Black & Decker. Yeah, there you go.
I don't even know what the first tools I bought myself were Makita's, my white Makita drill and driver set. But we use my Ryobi biscuit joiner that I bought. I think it works awesome. I don't care what anybody says.
That's what I have too. I have the Ryobi biscuit joiner. It works great.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
a
I've
simple
never
tool.
used a different one, so it's like,
Yeah, it's a simple tool. You don't need anything complicated.
Right.
I mean, like the domino would be very nice, but
I have that too.
well,
but
see, you have that.
It's
I don't
used
have
for
that.
different things. Like I still put tabletops together with biscuits because I'm not spending $70 on dominoes to put a tabletop together.
Is it that expensive?
No, I'm just kidding. It's like $25 for 100
Still,
or
though,
something like that.
That's a lot of $25 though.
Right?
I mean,
you know how many biscuits I could buy for $25?
Exactly. Yeah.
1,000.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's rare I use biscuits.
Yeah.
You just usually just glue.
Yep.
I think I'm going to try that next time because it seems like, especially when it's hot, when I go to glue stuff up, by the time I get done with like the third board, it's like already skimming over on the first one. And I'm like, oh, geez. Yeah. So I'm like, maybe I should use epoxy for tabletops.
I wouldn't recommend it unless you're milling your own lumber. That way, it's nice and flat. You do it right, and everything's milled, perfectly. I just use glue every time, and man, it's great.
Well, I got to run it through the sander anyway, so it's even with the biscuits, it's never lined up perfectly.
I tend to do everything in 13-inch sections so I can run it through my planer and then do a final glue up on the width, and I've only got a couple seams to deal with.
Yeah, I thought about doing that, but then I'm like, it's going to take too much time.
Yeah, I usually use biscuits when it's like over like 2 feet. If I'm doing something over 2 feet, then I'm like, okay, I'll do biscuits. But if it's anything like 24 inches or under, I'll just glue it. Usually it's fine.
Same.
I don't know. And let me preface that with saying that I'll always do a dry fit first to make sure everything's lining right. And if I'm having trouble with it, I'll put biscuits in it in a heartbeat because I got nothing against them. It's just an extra step that if I don't have to take, I won't take it because the glue's fine itself. Yeah. But if I dry fit it and it's looking nice, no biscuits. If it's got some stuff in it I can't figure out, then I throw some biscuits in there, just make my life easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love when people are like, those biscuits don't do anything for strength. I'm like, they're not. It's not what they're for. So it's fine. It's alignment only.
I mean, I'm sure there's some additional strength there just based on them connecting each other.
Yeah, maybe.
There's nothing worth noting.
Yeah. No. Have you guys ever used dowels for that kind of stuff? Like, I've never really did use dowels very much. I did a little bit like on some bases like to put stretchers to pedestals on a table. I used dowels like because I didn't have a domino at the time and that was the only thing I could think of other than pocket holes, but I wanted to do like joinery, but I didn't want to get all crazy. So.
I used a lot of dowels in my oak bookcases I just built. And because I didn't want to use any pocket holes or anything, so I used strictly dowels or no. Well, so I used they were 11-inch sections, right? And they were such expensive plywood. Like it was white oak plywood, and it was like the top of the line stuff that we could buy. And so it was for my dad too. So it was like, he didn't feel like it was any pressure because he was like, yeah, just build me something. And I'm like, I felt it because I was like, I want it to be freaking nice because he's going to have this in his house forever. But I didn't want to use any screws whatsoever, so I didn't. And so I just used dowels. And I actually made jigs for everything. Like I used excess cut-offs of plywood and made jigs, so everything was perfect. And it worked really well. And I'll probably be doing it on the next bookcase as well. I found it to be pretty simple, pretty easy, and I just made my own dowels, and it was easy. I liked it.
So are you talking about like where the shelves meet up with the edges?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how did you drill the dowels into the flat piece where it was going in? Like,
well, I had stops, so that's why like all my jigs, it made sure that I don't drill all the way through. Okay. One I did because my stop moved on me and I didn't notice it, and I drilled all the way through. Right. Luckily, it was on how these bookcases were set up. It was like 2 bookcases that go together and be one, and my through, I made sure that where I drilled through would be in the middle. So you would never see it. So it was fine. So I just put the dowel all the way through. And then I just sawed it off, like flush cut it, and then
gotcha. So you made like a jig to clamp to the face.
I made 2 different jigs. So I made one so I can drill out the shelves, and then on the side panels as well. So 2 different jigs. You
actually made your own jig to drill into the shelf. You didn't use like a Rockler one or anything like that.
No, I used my own because cool. And plus every shelf I was doing was 8 shelves in total. And on each side. So I was doing, and then 3 dowels on each one. So it was a ton of stuff. So I was like, oh, this is going to suck if I have to mark everything. So I made one jig that fit snug completely over each shelf. that already had the holes drilled out. And then I just marked basically with like electrical tape around my bit to know where it stops. And so I just snug it on the shelf and just drilled each one, and then it just made it super fast, and I busted them all out. But if I had the simple jigs you can do, it would have took me forever to mark every single one and make sure it's perfect and then line it up and do the jig. It was annoying.
Well, that's what I've always been curious about, because I know, like I say, I haven't used dowels that much, and like especially with the ones that like clamp on the end of the board, you tighten them down, I'm like, how do you do if you're just putting it into a flat face, like how do you get that reference? You know what I'm saying? Like I never did really figure that out, but I mean that makes sense. I guess you could put like some L bracket in there and like clamp it and then clamp that too. I don't know. It seems
It'd be annoying though.
Yeah,
so I just made my own, and it was so much simpler, and I didn't have to worry about it. And I just did a bunch of test pieces just to make sure it was perfect before I started drilling out every single one and then screw up sense. And then.
Yeah, but, I mean, I have done through dowels, which are kind of cool. Like on that one bar I did a long time ago out of hickory, I did those like brass dowels that went all the way through. That was kind of cool, but it was
those
also,
were, I remember that one. That was cool. Yeah, the brass dowels are really awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah, it's just hard to on hickory it wasn't too bad because it's so hard. But if I was doing that on like alder or some other softer wood, I could only imagine like just digging into the wood trying to sand it flat, because obviously the wood's gonna sand more than the dowel, and I was kind of having that problem on that too. But I would like sand it down, and then like I'd end up sanding the wood down, and I ended up like beveling off.
How heavy was that piece? That had to be super heavy.
It was 2-person carry for sure. Yeah,
it wasn't that big. Remember. It wasn't that tall, right? It was a small bar.
It was like, I don't remember. I think it was like 38 or 40 inches wide and about the same 36 inches tall or something. It wasn't small. And then it had all the shelves inside for the wine glasses and wine bottles and stuff. So those are removable, but the carcass itself was pretty heavy. Plus it had a metal base, pipe legs, and then I had metal accents on the doors too. So it wasn't light.
Yeah. Every time I work with hickory, it wears on my tools so much.
That's the only thing I ever did, and I won't ever do it again unless I have to.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. It looks cool. I love the way it looks.
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Well, Jesse, let's hear about you, man.
So I started kind of pretty much, I feel like everybody starts pretty much the same way, right? It's like hey, that coffee table's how much? I'll build it. Yeah, so that's kind of what happened. My wife was gone for the week or something, so I was here by myself, and so I was like, well, we need a new coffee table, so I'm gonna try to figure out how to build one. And I just finished building a shed with my father-in-law, who basically just told me exactly what to do, which was great, and it was great knowledge. And to build that, since he flew out to do it, to help me with it, he bought me a miter saw. So that kind of started everything. I already had a drill. He bought me a miter saw, and I was like, okay, I can build a coffee table. So I built a like pocket hole coffee table, farm style, right? And my wife got home. She loved it for about a day, and she's like, it's too big. And I'm like, okay. So I sold that one. I put it up, and someone's like, I'll buy it. And I'm like, okay. So I sold that one, took that money and bought another tool. I can't remember what I bought, and then basically built another one. And like 4 coffee tables later, I started to have kind of a shop, because every time I build one, my wife would just be like, yeah, I don't like the color. I don't like this. And so then I just kept building them, and I'm kind of happy
basically that you had to buy all the tools.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, then it just kind of snowballed. And then, when it comes to like social media stuff wise, I just kept building enough stuff where I wasn't trying to like teach anybody. And I still don't try to teach people how to do things. Like I just kind of like to show people what I'm doing, because I don't feel like I'm on that level where I feel comfortable saying, hey, you should learn from me, Right. But I started just posting photos all the time of all this farm furniture I was building for people. And so I was like, I'm gonna start my own Instagram. So I did. And then it got to a point where it's like, hey, I'm just going to start doing videos of what I do and see what people think and if people like it. And it turned out that people did. So I just kept doing it, and then kind of turned my focus from doing client work. I don't really do any anymore besides family and friends, which is, to be honest, fantastic. It's probably the best thing. I
got the same policy.
Yeah. I mean, friends and family, it's funny. And the certain friends or family, it's a headache. Like I've had certain friends that I'm just like, oh gosh, I really don't want to build this for you. And sometimes it works out good. Sometimes it's horrible. And it's like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have done it.
Yep.
But I'd rather build it for people I care about. So, and if I do, I feel like I can deal with the crap that comes along with it if it does happen. But anyway, now I just kind of build stuff for myself, and this is kind of what I do pretty much full time. And I was lucky enough that some sponsors were liked my stuff enough that they had faith in me to kind of keep going and stuff. So, but that's pretty much what I do and why I'm here, and it's been fun. It's a great journey. Like I've learned a ton. You learn to get tough skin. I know you two know online when it comes to stuff. Sure. You're just like, you learn to just roll with it, and you're like, now I feel like I don't care ever. But like when I first started, it was
cooler is when you get an audience built up that really likes what you're doing, and then they'll actually fight for you.
Mm-hmm. That is always nice.
So you don't have to do anything. You just sit back. You're like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love it. I love it when you see the comments on like the spam woodworking accounts that just steal your content without tagging you. Mm-hmm. And it's like your followers were like, hey, stop stealing Mullen Woodworks content or whatever.
I don't even know about it half the time until people DM me and they're like, hey, this page has your stuff. And I'm like, God, what the heck?
I'm like, hey, thanks for watching out, man. Appreciate it.
No kidding.
So, yeah, but it's been good.
It's funny. I learn more from the things that mistakes that I make, stuff that I mess up, which I mess up on a lot. And when you put it out there on social media, you don't even realize how much stuff you mess up on until you put it out there. And when you got that many people, and it's not really in the grand scheme of things, that many people, but it's a lot of people looking at your stuff, and a lot of very knowledgeable people looking at every detail of your stuff, you're going to get a lot wrong. Like I get something wrong every single time I put something on YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And they'll point it out. And a lot of the times, it's in a nice way. I've learned, and I had to learn this in social media, is you have to take the tone out of all of that text, because you can put in tone that is not really there, of people who are making those comments. So I kind of had to learn to take that tone out, take it on the face of, all right, they're saying that in a nice way, and whether they are or they aren't, I try to make it that way.
Yeah, that's actually a good benefit of the doubt.
That's a good rule for marriage too. Like when you're texting your wife, if you take the tone completely out of it, it actually is better, because you always put it in and it's like, oh, this isn't good. She's mad at me, and then she gets home and she's like, no, I was just telling you. It's like, okay.
And we're all old enough to have been around during texting without emojis, so there was no tone. Right. You could even put an emoji in there to see how what kind of tone it was.
Or your mother, whether it's your mother or mother-in-law, they still text with zero emojis, and it's like, I don't know if you're mad or not. You gotta tell me.
Right. My mom always texts in quotes. She literally will put quotes around stuff, and I'm like,
like around what she's saying. Like, she's like, hi, Brandon.
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
Just say hi, Mom.
Just a nice way of saying, write this down.
Right? No, she'll say something, and then she'll say, they said this, and then I said, yeah, or I'm like, Mom, you don't have to put the quote, whatever. I'm just proud of her that she's texting.
That's
I would
awesome.
never in my life bet that my mom would be texting me ever.
Really?
Oh no.
Why is she? How old is she? Is she, if you don't mind me asking, I guess. But
it put me on the spot. They had me late, so she's I think she just turned 70 actually. So,
okay, so yeah. So texting wise, right. I understand. Yeah.
And I grew up in the mountains. I didn't even have internet until I was 12, 13 years old, and even then it was dial up, and just it was horrible. And that's because
they're 70 and we're not even 40 and can remember growing up in an era with no cell phones, no pagers, no computers.
So stuff's so fast, progressed so quickly. It's crazy. I'll even look back on pictures and videos from 10 years ago, and I'm like, what is that? A razor? What the heck is that? Flip phones?
Well, you even look at when we started Instagram. Instagram's completely different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty sure when we started, with Brandon and I started almost the exact same time. Really going after it. Not even really going after it, but you brought me into the first woodworking group message ever.
Yeah.
And,
me too.
Yeah, we were brought in the same one, and it was we were all at I was at barely 2,000 followers, and I was just kind of starting out. But you reached out and you talked to me a little bit, and you're like, "You want to join?" And I was like, "Okay." And I felt like everybody was way far ahead of me, even though we were all pretty much kind of trying to learn all the new same stuff. But
being in a group setting like that really did help a lot.
It does, yeah. And I anybody, like, if you are a woodworker and you are watching, I would do that. If I were you, just get people that you talk to, get in a group message. It helped me a ton. Like, even having the one with Charles, who is what's his
Knothead custom sawing.
Dude, he has so much knowledge of stuff.
Oh god, you should go hang out with him for a day. You'll learn as much as you know plus some.
I'd love to. But that guy, like, every time we've had a question, just do it in the group message, and he'd always like, oh, this is exactly what you need to do. This is what's wrong with your tool, whatever. And it's like,
dude, yeah, he's been doing it his whole life, literally, and he's like, I don't know, in his 40s maybe, something like that.
Yeah. And
he's and his dad too, and they're just like, it's a generational group of people that have done woodworking and stuff and milling and all that. So I didn't even know he did furniture until I went down there to get a slab from him. And then he's like, oh yeah. And then he's like, this is a table that I did. I'm like, dude, that's sweet. What the heck? And he's like, oh yeah, I used to do custom furniture all the time. And I worked at a furniture factory and all that. I'm like, where is this coming from? I thought you just cut up wood slabs in your yard.
Yeah.
And then come to find out he's like this wealth of knowledge that I'm just thankful to have tapped into.
Well, that's the cool thing about Instagram is, like, I didn't ever expect anything like that. I was just throwing up pictures and hoping people liked it type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's like you learn from all these different people. Like, I mean, I FaceTimed him too, and he, like, when my joiner wasn't working right, I was like, dude, something's not lined up right. I don't know what it is, what's going on. And he FaceTimed me for like an hour and a half, and then we figured out. He's like, oh, I know exactly what it is. And then, like, it was like one simple stupid thing, and I'm like, dude, I would have been here for days trying to figure this out. I'm so happy that, like, we connected on this platform,
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I only know him because of Chad from Earl's Woodworks. Because they live, I think they live about hour apart. So Charles was always helping him out, and so I had a question. He's like, "Oh, here, call Charles. He'll be happy to help you." And I was like, "That's kind of weird," but then I called him, and he's just super helpful. Just like And now we're like good friends, so it's pretty cool.
What's funny is how many people there really is out there like that. I mean, there isn't a whole ton of people that have that kind of knowledge, but somebody who's willing to help with whatever knowledge they have. It's been rare that we've gotten one of these chat groups or whatever, text groups, and they weren't just completely helpful, non-judgmental, would always, you could throw whatever you want out there and nobody would make you feel stupid. They'd make fun of you, but not make you feel stupid.
Of course. It's because they like you.
Yeah, exactly. And make you and help you. And for guys like us, man, I mean, if you didn't have somebody to fall back on, and if it's not rough construction lumber, I can't call my dad unless I'm working with 2x4s or 2x8s outside, and so to have somebody to be able to call and do that is really nice. I mean, that's huge.
What's really weird is when you go from that and then you progress and then people start asking you, and I'm like, well, why are you asking me?
Then it gets a little scary because you're like,
I get that too. I usually forward it to somebody else that knows more than me.
Yeah,
like I had a guy.
I'll answer if I know, obviously.
Yeah,
or if
it gets a little scary in the beginning because you're like, I hope I'm telling you this right.
I usually reference somebody else. I'm like, well, what I do is what this guy did. Go watch that video, or whatever.
Yeah, I always preface with like, hey, like, I'm not an expert. I don't like, I just DIY. I'm mostly like DIY stuff, but this is what I've done in the past. But here's someone else that's done it all the time. Like, I just had somebody ask me about stump stuff, like live edge stumps, like filling in epoxy and all this stuff. Like, what's exactly the perfect epoxy? I'm like, you should probably reach out to like the stump shop, because that's literally all he does, and he's a nice guy. Go reach out to him.
I've become an expert middleman.
Yeah, me too, man. This is the best job. That's right.
The logistics over here is awesome.
Yeah. Most of all my advice comes in the form of, this isn't what I know and done right. This is how I've got it wrong 30 times, and I'm telling you how I got it wrong, so you can skip those 30 steps, and then we can move on to something else.
Yeah, that's probably like one of the most, like, the highest comments. Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. The most common comments I get in my videos is like the ones that I've left the mistakes in. They're like, thank you for leaving the mistakes. That makes me feel better that I'm not the only one that screws up. And I'm like, oh, I screw up all the time.
Like,
if I left them in my videos all the time, that's all you would see.
Yeah, I screw up all the time. I'd leave them in there more if it wasn't just troll food, though.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But I feel like it helps people more than than trolls.
Yeah, absolutely. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I think if you point out your flaws and don't just skip over them, but then most people are like, oh, okay, he fixed it, cool. But if you just like do it and then brush past it and don't say anything, everyone's like, whoa, what the heck? And they don't call you out on it. So it's like, it's better just to be like, yeah, I screwed up, moved on, type thing.
Yeah. I'm usually that's me in the comments. As soon as somebody brings it up, like I just did a YouTube video on glued up flat panels, which pride myself. I've always taken my time and done such a good job when I make panels, and have always paid attention from tabletops all the way to anything that I've needed. Right. So I was like, I'm going to do a YouTube video on this. And in your mind, what people don't realize is that it's not just showing your knowledge of the woodworking stuff that you're doing. You're also having to think of what's a good camera angle? Is my audio good? Do I have this right? Is that right? Can you hear me? Is this entertaining enough? Am I going through the steps? Okay. And it's inevitable. You'll forget something every time. And I completely and 100% forgot to alternate my grain patterns so that, your grain's going up and then your grain's going down, your grain's going up. Very important in panels for long term. At the moment, it's not a big deal, but long term, they'll stay straighter if you do that. I've done it every time. I've always done it. I was taught that way. And in my video, didn't do it.
You might be better off that way, because I've mentioned that in several videos and I've got so many comments. It doesn't matter. You don't need to do that. Blah, blah.
I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure later on down the road, it's going to matter. But
I mean, it's just like the C channel. It might not need it, but guess what? If you put it in there, it's gonna give you a little bit.
That's right.
But
hey, I hit post on that video and it wasn't 15 minutes. First comment was, he didn't alternate the grain patterns, and I'm like,
of course.
Oh God, didn't. You're right.
Only thing that would have made that better is if they said, like, Walker's Woodwork said you got to rotate the grain. Why didn't you do that?
I'm gonna start just watching your videos and just doing little snippets that don't matter at all. Just be like, hey, you missed this.
Hey, I own it. I pinned that sucker right to the top and said, "You're exactly right," and I hope everybody reads this. And,
well, then it stops.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it stops other comments.
Yeah,
maybe. Most people don't read any comments. I can't tell you how many comments. I don't expect people to go through and like on my most watched video, that desktop one. Like, there's a lot of comments. I don't even know how many, but the number one I get on there is, how much would this cost? Like, I swear to God, it has like 40 comments of that. And I'm like, it's in there so much. But then I'm like, I'm not going to go through hundreds of comments and find that either. So,
well, I get that on Instagram with the pergolas I've been building with the brackets, the Toya Grip brackets. Right. So many people message can I buy these from you? I'm like, no, bro, I'm using them to build. You can It even says in the comments, link in bio, bro. So if you want to buy them, go I don't, whatever. Every time, like, can you ship them to me? And it's like some foreign country. I'm like, no, sorry, bud.
No, I don't think I can ship to Nigeria. Sorry.
Yeah, that's usually what it is. Somewhere crazy.
You can tell that this is a completely new setup for me, because I have knocked over everything on this desk. I've hit my knee on it. I've knocked my mic completely off.
Yeah, Brandon punched his mic right at the beginning, so it's okay.
Yeah,
I saw that.
Well, I got it on this sweet camp table that I ordered specifically to fit in my closet because I'm too poor for a recording studio like Jesse over there.
Recording studio
or Mullen, sorry.
If you saw my setup, it's the most janky little thing, man. So no worries.
I told him when you were gone, Jesse P, that he looks like he's pulling his Joe Rogan.
I didn't even notice. Like, he's like, "Hey, you got the brick and the flag," and I was like, "Oh, it's crap." I didn't even think about it. But all right, I'll take it.
Looks good.
I'm in my bonus room. I just turned it so you could see some cool stuff on the wall or something. I don't know.
Yeah. There you go.
It's all right.
Wait till the kids go to bed, so I'm gonna start getting elbows to the head.
How old is that keyboard back there, though? Is all I really want to know.
That thing? Yeah. Very old. And I love it.
A Windows 95 PC?
It's one of those split ones, so your hands got to stay apart. It's old school.
Hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
It's got the rubber, rubber cover over the keys so they don't get dirty.
It's all moldy and stuff. You're like, what is that?
It's not your grandmother's couch. It's not that.
It's all yellow because it's so old. It's
the ones you had in computer school, like in high school. And it was like gross.
I love that keyboard.
Can't even see the letters anymore because the plastic's so faded.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Hey, I took typewriting in high school on an actual typewriter.
Oh my gosh!
You're like, mine's out of ink.
It's very rare.
Born in the 1800s. That's amazing. You look great.
Right.
The schools that couldn't afford our schools couldn't afford computers.
Oh man.
Hilarious. Yeah, I think we're just a few years younger than you. Actually, I think we're all like 10 years apart, aren't we?
I don't think so.
Well, how
10
old
years
are you?
apart? What are you talking about?
Well,
Jesse just
you're in
looks
your-
old
you're in
for
your
his
what?
age.
You're in your what?
I'm
30s,
I'm
right? Like
38.
high 30s? 38,
38,
high 30s.
yeah.
Okay, so you're 10 years
34.
apart from me.
How
You're
10
over-
from you?
Yeah, from me, over 10 years from me, man.
How old are you?
Me? I'm 26, bro.
Oh,
I'm a
jeez.
young, spry 26, okay?
See,
Pretty,
and I didn't
pretty
even,
young to be retired.
look. We started.
That's
I had
true,
no
true.
idea.
That's
I
funny.
honestly, Jesse, I had no idea you're that young. But I'm
Yeah, that's funny.
glad that you're going to be in charge of our tech stuff because that's going to work out just fine.
Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
I'm right in
after
the
this
middle.
first episode. It's funny. I was at the store with my 3 kids, so it was just me and my 3 kids, and I was buying groceries, but I had a pack of beer right underneath the cart. So I'm like, put all my groceries up, and I go, I was like, oh, I got some beer too. And she's like, oh, okay, I need to check your ID. She's like, but man, I hope you're 21 with 3 kids, especially since my oldest is 5. And
like,
and I was like,
geez.
God, I hope so too. Then I give her my ID. She's like, well, you're not that far off. I was like, yeah, I know. I started early. No big deal.
That's hilarious.
Sorry,
Oh,
but
That's
yeah.
what happens when you grow up where it snows like 8 months out of the year.
Right.
It's true. It's actually
Jeez.
called a benefit, Jesse. Okay, a benefit. And it's amazing.
I love the snow. It's great. But when I see your stories,
Oh,
like
God.
3 months
Dude.
before it even gets to freezing here and y'all have like 12 foot of snow, you can have it. I'm out.
Yeah. Well, on Thanksgiving, we had everybody at my house, right? And we had it all set up. We like cleaned out the shop, put up all these tables. We were having like 30 adults, a bunch of kids over. It was a lot of people. And I'm smoking a turkey, all this stuff. Well, that night, it snows like 1.5 feet. So I'm outside in the morning, like it's like 5 o'clock, and I'm like, oh God, I gotta start like getting everything ready. And I look outside and it's just like this much snow. And I'm like, oh. And I don't have a snowblower because I'm stupid. Well, now I do. After this happened, I went and bought one. But I was
I'm
like,
an
okay, so
idiot.
I started shoveling. Dude, I got like, I mean, my driveway's 80 feet. Right.
Mhm.
And when it snows like this, you can't park on the street. And we had 30 people coming over. So it's like, oh God, I had to clear out that entire driveway. It was the
You have
worst.
a driveway big enough to hold 30 people?
Well, I mean, it's not like everybody drives a single car, Brandon.
You know
Still.
where the real panic would have ensued if 30 people were at your house and it started snowing like that. And then you
it
realized that they were
stuck.
all going to get stuck there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's what I
That'd be
thought
bad.
you were saying.
Oh,
But,
God,
no.
they were all
luckily.
there, and then it snowed overnight, and they had to stay the night. 30
No,
people in your house.
Luckily, we were okay, but it was crazy, and the snow sucks, but it's not the worst. I mean, I grew up in California where it like never snowed, and then now I'm just used to it. You know?
Yeah,
Well, I guess we should
too.
mention. I guess we should mention actually where we're at because we're all assuming that everybody
That's a good
listening to
point.
this
That's a good point.
knows where we're from, but they don't. So
Our intros kind of sucked. Like we told our story, but we had told nothing about ourselves, which is
They're
the
We went
worst.
pretty fast.
Yeah.
After I got done, I was like, I skipped a lot.
I did too. It's because it's ingrained in your mind. You're like, people don't care. Like
Right.
you're like, I'm telling this story, and it's like, why would people care that 9 years ago I started woodworking? You know,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. I guess it'll help inspire or do something for somebody somewhere, or
Hopefully,
they'll just
yeah.
laugh at us.
You get to,
Yeah.
get to
we
know
need to-
us anyway if they care at all.
So I'm born and raised and live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
That's
We
awesome.
know.
How about you?
I was born in California. I moved to Utah for school. It's been almost 8. I think it's like 8 years. So I've been in Utah for about 8 years, and I'm about an hour north of Salt Lake, and love it out here. Fell in love with it, stayed, and now all our family's moving out. So both in-laws and my parents both bought houses. The whole family, the whole shebang, everybody's moving out, which
Well,
I love.
If everybody watches your stories and they see you out for a walk in the most scenic part of the world I've ever seen in my entire life, I almost bought a
Yeah.
place there.
Right.
Like, I almost called you and was like, "What is
You're
for sale
I'm
in that
moving
area?"
Yeah,
Dude,
I
I'm
actually
telling you.
have asked him that.
yeah, that's true.
I'm
We've
like,
had this
"Hey,
conversation.
so how? Actually, I asked both of you that.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
they live
unbelievable.
here.
Let them know where you're from, and everyone's like, "Oh, that makes sense why he wants to move." Go ahead.
California. I live in California, born and raised. Although I'm not from Southern California, they were from NorCal, air quotes. So I'm like what is it, like an hour and a half northeast from Sacramento. So we're pretty rural.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of weird because I'm like grew up in the mountains. So once I got into the school I went to from kindergarten through 8th grade, all of those grades combined had like 60 kids at the most the whole time I went there. And that was the school I went to from kindergarten through 8th grade. And then I went to high school and there's 1,400 kids in my freshman class. And I'm like, what is this? Yeah. It was crazy. The only thing I had on my side was I played Little League. So I kind of knew some people. So I had a few friends when I went to high school, other than the 4 people that graduated 8th grade with me, or 3 people with me. So
that's crazy.
It was intense. But yeah, we've looked around, tried to move away, but all of me and my girlfriend's families both around here, so it's really hard, especially since my mom is older. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, so it's like I can't leave her. Yeah. And so now I have a better job that I enjoy, so now it's really hard to move. Yeah. But I love California as far as geographical, but like the laws and just how the direction it's going is just not for me. But what are you gonna do?
Now, as far as woodworking goes, where you're at, Brandon, to start, how is it? It seems like you have your hands on just about pretty much any type of wood that you need at any time. It seems like you got a lot of mills that are pretty close to you and stuff like that. Is it a pretty nice area for that?
Yeah, a lot of it is, I would say most of it, except for like the hardwood store, they get it imported from wherever. But all the actual mills, they're all like urban. So I don't know what they call, like urban logging or whatever. All the tree companies. So when they cut down an ornamental tree or, trees in the parks or whatever, then that's where a lot of the slabs around here come from. So that's why we have such a variety of slabs, because people plant trees that aren't really from, it's probably the same everywhere, but people plant trees that aren't really grown natively, and then they get cut down for whatever reason, and then those get taken to smaller mills and stuff, and that's usually where like the slab stuff comes from. But as far as like dimensional lumber, we have just normal stuff, like except for ash. I've never seen or used ash before, which apparently is weird. And I use alder a lot, and a lot of people are like, I can't even get alder.
Oh, that's weird.
I don't know.
You've never seen alder?
Yeah, apparently like Midwest and East Coast like never get it, but they're just loaded with ash, and I'm like, I've never seen that. I don't even know what it looks like.
I'm not saying it's not here. I've just not seen it in the couple places that I go to get my lumber. Now, how far of a drive for you, Brandon, is it to like the nearest place where you get your hardwoods?
Like half hour. It's actually in the same town that I work in now, so it's on the north end, and we're on the south end, so it's probably like 40 minutes from me if I have to drive from my house. But they're cool. They give me since I have a business and a resale license and all that, they give me a pretty good deal, so it's pretty cool. And like if I buy knotty alder, I can get it for like $250 a board foot or something, which is for 8/4. So yeah, it's worth it to buy that over regular alder, which is like $4 or $5 a board foot, and then maple's like $6. But walnut's like $10. But they also service it on 3 sides, so it's not like you're buying rough lumber, which is nice.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jesse?
That's nice. So I get my hardwood from Salt Lake, so it takes me about an hour and 15 to get there. But the selection, we have basically 3 huge warehouses that get them from all over, and the part of the country that we're from, I feel like we just have a great selection. It's really cheap. So like knotty alder's same. I can buy 8/4 for like nothing, so that's why I use it all the time, especially with people that, whether it's family, friends, whatever, or clients that are like, yeah, I don't really want to spend a ton of money. Like, they're like, I want it to look like that. And they show me a picture of walnut, and I'm like, okay, well, this is the price. And they're like, oh, never mind. And I'm like, well, I can get something really like, what's your budget? And then they tell me, I'm like, well, I can use knotty alder and stain it, but it's not going to look like that, but it'll be darker. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll do that. So I do knotty alder a lot. But yeah, it's about an hour 15. I love it. The biggest thing I get is when I buy like lumber from Home Depot, 2x4, 2x6, whatever it is. Everyone's like, how did you get your lumber so straight? Like every time I go to Home Depot, it's never like that. Like everyone, and I'm like, I don't know, our selection, like is always good. Like I can always, it's always packed, and I just show up and I'm like, it's really straight. Just throw it on. Like it's really easy, and it seems like a lot of people can't do that. And I think
Must be nice.
Yeah.
So neither one of you guys can do that.
No.
Oh, really?
No. Ours is really easy. Probably at least 5 to 8 before I get one straight one.
Oh, really?
I usually have to pick through over double the amount of what I'm buying to find what I need.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what it is. Like if you're looking for 1x2s, good luck.
No.
Yeah.
They're just,
they look like S's.
Yeah.
That looks awful.
Yeah, the thinner you get, the harder it is. But like the 2x4s, 2x6, whatever you buy that dimension wise, it's really easy. And ours all come from Idaho, right? Because they're all stamped Idaho Forest or whatever. So I don't know if it's just because we get them faster than everybody, so they have less time to move and change.
In my town, and it literally goes 5 miles to Home Depot, and it's still, because it's not the problem. I think the main problem with it is they're trying to produce that stuff so fast.
Yeah.
So it's like such wide grains, and they're like not dry, obviously.
No, obviously.
They do have a kiln dried section, but I've taken my moisture meter there, and it's still 25-30%. So as long as it's below 30%, they're technically kiln dried, I guess, in their standards. But it's definitely not like getting kiln dried from a hardwood dealer.
Yeah.
Well, just so everybody, what are you looking for when you take your meter there? Like what percentage are you looking for before you buy it?
Well, I mean, I don't really do it anymore because I always buy from that hardwoods dealer usually. But like I said, like another thing, I'm not an expert in this either, but what I've always been told is like if it's below 10 is ideal, but if it's below like 12, you can get away with it. I mean, it also depends on your climate, I guess. If you're in a real humid place, you might not even ever get below 12 or 15. But if you're in like California or Arizona or something, I was talking to Ty Moser from Monoloco Woodshop, I think it is, and I haven't seen him for a while, but he's like milling his own stuff, and I was asking him, and he was like, we get down to like 6% because it's so dry there, and he said he can dry lumber like within a year. It's crazy.
Hey, let's pause for a second. I'll cut this out. Who's messing with their mic?
It's just text. It's Brandon, big dummy.
Is it? Oh, it's
keep
this?
Your mic. Yeah, you keep hitting it.
I'm messing with the table.
Oh,
it is awful.
I was like, I'm gonna cut this out. I'm gonna leave it. Be like, you know what, Brandon? Learn your lesson. Be professional. Let's get
Stop
with this,
playing
dude.
with their mic, Brandon.
Yeah, we're gonna leave this in. Way to go, Brandon.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm new. I don't know what to do.
I was texting it out immediately.
Yeah. Nobody listened to anything you said last 3 minutes, just so you know.
Brandon.
That's exactly what it's hilarious.
So we'll leave it in. Buying a good mic.
It's part of it. Yeah.
Picks up everything.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. That's basically, I think, let's wrap it up for the first podcast. I think it was, I hope everyone, if you do listen, come back next week. We're going to have some segments for you. We're going to go through, basically best comments of the week, and we'll all pick one, and we'll all just go through and show whether it's bad, good, whatever. We're just going to start show best comments. So it'll be fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
And that's fun. Comments over all of our social media, which trust me, those will be good.
There's plenty.
You should shout out where they can find us as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also we'll put all of that stuff down in the show notes. All of us are on Instagram. We're all on YouTube as well as other multi-platforms.
TikTok.
Even the dreaded TikTok.
Shut down. Yeah, until it gets shut down. We're on TikTok.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yep, the dreaded TikTok. We all jumped on that pretty early, and but we'll put it all down in the show notes. Mine's Penalty Box Woodshop on everything, whether it's at Penalty Box Woodshop or just Penalty Box Woodshop. Brandon, I know yours is the same, right? It's just all Walker's Woodworks on.
Yeah, Walker's_Woodworks on Instagram, but Walker's Woodworks on everything else.
And mine's
Jesse,
all Mullen Woodworks. All Mullen Woodworks across. Yep. So
Mullen with no S. Don't be like me and mess that up.
Come on,
it's
bro.
Not plural.
I've known you for like 4 years. Get it right. But anyway,
it's all about the mind and the mouth, meshing together and speaking.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
But yeah, so you can check us all out there. If you have any questions, you can actually email those. We set up an email address. You can email it over to contactgbspodcast@gmail.com. It's like go build something GBS. Contact GBS at what did I say? Yeah,
contact gbspodcast@gmail.com.
You think I know that? I made it up.
He made it extremely simple, obviously, so everyone, you can just remember it.
Obviously,
simple. I'm going to put it right above Jesse's face at the bottom when we edit this, so you actually can see it. So,
but you can shoot us anything you want there: questions, comments, concerns, whatever. We'll check those regularly. We'll bring any questions up on the podcast, and we can answer them there. We'll try to have some topics as we come into stuff, but really we're just going to talk. We're going to talk about how we've gone through the week and what we're building experiences. We might even find a topic and just stay on it for a while, and hopefully it'll help somebody out, whether it's making cabinets, making tables, whatever. I can promise you we've probably, between the three of us, built it, screwed it up several times, and then got it right, and we might be able to help somebody, or you might be able to help us. If you hear us talking about it wrong, shoot us an email and let us know. We're great with it. So yeah, I think that that pretty much wraps it up.
Right on.